What's up, everybody? Welcome to Soundbites. We're here in New York City, and I've got the local legend himself, Chef Rocco DiSpirito. How you doing, Chef?
What's up, brother? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Good seeing you. Got a great
spot. Are we in New York City? Let me just...
I mean, you know, it doesn't seem like
yes,
it.
we are.
There's
Here we
like
are.
trees and
That's
birds
right.
and
Yeah.
it's one little bite of a giant meal of a city.
Yeah.
That was a terrible pun, cliche, but I'm going with it anyway.
That's right. You lived here, and what
I lived here. I lived here.
Yeah.
It was front of house. Then I switched to the back of house because I realized I don't like people.
Yeah.
And then I decided to move to San Diego.
Do you know what I found out? You have to like people in the back of the house too.
I know.
I'm not sure when that transition happened, but
it shifted.
It happened in our lifetimes.
It shifted. When I started cooking, you didn't have to like people. You could be the disgruntled curmudgeon in the kitchen.
Totally curmudgeonly, grumpy, and it was all good. Now
Just
you got
miserable.
Now you got to be nice to everybody.
You got to be nice. You got to smile. All of that. I mean, besides that part, besides having to be nice to people.
Yeah.
What's the biggest thing that you've seen shift from when you started cooking to now?
Well, so many things have changed because I started cooking in the 1800s. So so many things. Like we have gas and electric now.
Running water.
We don't have to chop down trees anymore. One of the biggest things I've seen is the shift from sources of knowledge and education going from in-house, in operation to social media, to the internet. So when I was growing up as a chef, you had to work for people and you had to sort of get them to like you, to share information with you so you could learn. And information was what we traded, right? Having information about how to make hollandaise, make, pot au choux, make any dough, cake, how to roast a chicken, all that information was hard earned. And now all you have to do is, look it up on YouTube, and it's a very good way to learn.
I mean, there's amazing things you can learn on YouTube. There's a lot of other really great content on YouTube.
Yeah.
Follow us now.
Yeah.
There's so many things.
You guys have content on YouTube?
All right. Tell me, with that, what's your origin story? Tell me about chef start to now.
So Italian-American family. I was born in Queens. My parents were immigrants who came in the 50s and 60s. They spoke Italian. I spoke Italian growing up. Our first language was Italian, so I lived in basically an Italian household, an Italian environment in a mixed community in Queens. No, I think I had a 75 cents a week allowance, and for my allowance I had to deliver food to homebound elderly people, so it wasn't even an allowance, it was a job. And I asked my mom for a raise and she told me to get a job. I was 11. My mom was
Talk to the union rep.
She's like, get a job. I'm like, I already have a job. And I'm 11, Mom. It's illegal. I'm not even supposed to be working. So I said, I want to buy this album called Love Gun. And she knew that was by a band called Kiss. And to her, Kiss were the devils and stuff. So she said, this is an exact direct quote. Rocco, if you want to buy this junk from these devils, you go to work. You get your own job, you make your own money, and you buy this record. But I don't give you nothing. So my takeaway was, holy crap, I can go work and make my own money? I didn't know that. So it was a big epiphany for me. Next day, I got a job in a pizzeria, and I've worked in restaurants ever since, and that's going on 40 years ago. So
okay,
that's my cooking origin. So a bunch of stuff that I learned on the job that I wish they taught me in school, but I do want to say that culinary school is a really great way to get to become exposed to many, many subjects in a short amount of time that would have taken 10 years back then. Now, because of YouTube, again, it's not as needed, but I do wish they taught the social skills that were required. Because the kitchen's really about camaraderie, right? It's a lot of social skills, it's a lot of hanging and chilling, and making sure your team is feeling good and happy, and it's a lot of entertaining, taking people out for a drink after work, that kind of thing. And they didn't really stress that very much, and I think there should be probably a third of the curriculum devoted to that, because at the end of the day, you can be a great chef, you can have great food, great products, great restaurant, but if your team's not happy and they're not feeling the vibes, it's not going to work out.
Only now in 2022 can we talk about feeling the vibes of the kitchen.
I know, right?
And that was such a part of it. Before it was always like, this is how we do it, and if you don't like it, the door's over there.
See, we all like to say that, but it's not true. There was always camaraderie, and there was always a cool chef that we all loved, that we followed, who had just a great way about them.
Who was one of those cool chefs that you got to come up under that you like, that's what I want, like that's maybe not everything that you wanted to be in that chef, but like, so you took something from it, you're like, I'm learning from this person.
Yeah, so I'll tell you two people. One was a guy named Mark Erickson. He was a teacher at the Culinary Institute of America, the small insignificant school that we don't even need to talk about. And I ran into him recently. He's still like just wondrous, right? He's just like this guy who just seems to know everything and has all the answers and all the information. And he was a very chill guy who ran a serious kitchen, but also was like lovable. And then in New York City, very early on, there was a guy named Robert Windhorst, and he's the guy who turned me on to working in Europe. And he got me my first job in Europe. He was Dutch. And the Dutch are fucking crazy, right? They're just like out of their minds. They're so fun because they have fun, they curse, they make great food, but they're kind of like up for anything at all times. Mm-hmm. But they're also serious about their work and like they invented work-life balance. So work was always fun, but always also correct and serious. And he was a guy I worked for in New York very early in my career that I liked a lot.
You got tons of things going on. How do you find balance out of all of it? So that, I mean, like you're a grounded, down-to-earth guy. At least that's what we're going with right now. I mean, that's what I think. Okay. But I mean, like how do you keep yourself grounded?
Thank you,
all about the therapy.
Thank you, my therapist. You know who you are. So I would say I'm definitely not balanced and have not found a work-life balance. I would say I'm one of those guys who works way too much and is still chasing, still running after the dreams that I had as a young kid. I still am very much in love with cooking, the culinary community, cooking for people, enjoying the company of other people, whether I'm cooking for them or we're just eating out. I would say there's very little balance in my life. I am definitely a workaholic. I don't think it's my lifetime. Maybe my kids will enjoy that. My parents didn't enjoy work-life balance. They came to America, from a war-torn country out of a depression. They didn't care about work-life balance. They just wanted food on the table. And I think, I'm first generation, so I'm still very much chasing the American dream myself. And maybe my kids or grandchildren will understand what that means, what it means to have a work-life balance.
I get that.
Might be underrated too, guys. By the way, I love my work. So for me, work and life are so blurred. The difference between work and life, I don't even know the difference, right?
If you take all of the celebrity, all of the reality show, Food Network, all of the books, take all that stuff and just strip it away, set it aside. What do you want your legacy to be in the kitchen? What do you want to be the piece that
cool.
you leave behind?
If I just get to be remembered for one dish, I'll be really happy. It was a raw scallop dish, local bay scallops, sea urchin, mustard oil, and tomato water. It's a dish I created from scratch. I remember actually creating it, and a lot of people remember it. If people will remember that into the future, that'll make me feel really good about my legacy. I'd like to think I made an impact in the health and wellness world as well. And in 2006, I did a triathlon called Ironman, and I had to learn how to eat in a whole different way. And I had to train for this crazy swim, bike, run moment. And I learned how to cook the foods that I love in a way that included more nutritionally dense foods and excluded a lot of the junk carbs and the junk foods highly processed foods that we're trying to stay away from. That turned into a series of books, starting with Now Eat This, going into the Pound a Day diet, and that turned into the Pound a Day diet meal delivery program that I'm still executing out of my kitchen in New York City. And basically, I take a nutrition plan and I turn it into a meal delivery plan. So a lot of people go to nutritionists and they get great information, and their doctors say, you need to cut this, add this, and they hand them 10 pages of printed pages.
There's a bunch of stuff you're never going to read, but this is important.
You go home, you put it on your fridge, and nothing ever happens, right? So I'm the guy who takes it off the fridge and actually executes it and delivers it to you, and I do that. That's my main sort of business.
All right, so we talked about the healthy food side of things. talk about balance. Let's shift it over to what's your guilty pleasure? What's that thing that like you don't want people to know that you love?
Every guilty pleasure you've ever heard of is my guilty pleasure. On top of that, I am extremely in love with pizza, with whiskey, with Chinese takeout. Like the later in the night and the greasier the better. Oh, and here's another thing that I really like. It's everything looks like everything is cake.
It's a cake.
Yeah. It's like, not to make me super happy, you would cut this table in half at this moment and it would turn into cake.
Well, chef, guess what? If only.
I want to go and do that to people for a living. I just want to like set up what seem to be social or work situations and then just cut everything in half at the
Start
end.
cutting into it all.
Yeah.
So I mean, you mentioned that. Like, is there a food trend on TikTok that you've tried at home that like you looked at it, you're like, all right, that's interesting, and then you're like one day like, no, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna make it.
Bacon bowl. The bacon bowl. Yeah. So it's this really trash like TikTok channel that it's like bacon and pre-grated cheese and tater tots, and it's all in a bowl and it's baked in the oven and covered with something that looks like queso. It's such trash, but it's so good. It's so good. Yeah.
Tried, tested, and true.
Yes, like 8 pounds of bacon wrapped around tater tots, dipped in queso. Served with salsa. Gross, but good.
What's next for you? Not necessarily like work-wise, but like what's the next big thing in your world?
So I haven't been able to travel outside of the country a lot because of work, responsibility, family, and pandemic. So that's going to be a major priority starting in November. I'm finishing my next cookbook that's coming out next year, and some Food Network stuff. And so those are sort of up next. I'm working on a restaurant. I told you about that. Those are what's sort of on deck for me. Yeah.
Just
a few
things.
light projects, no big deal.
Couple little things
Nothing
in the fire.
Time consuming. Yeah.
Exactly. Got all the spare time in the world to hang out with me outside of the vessel.
Yeah.
Chef, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Great spending time with you guys. Thank you so much.
It's a great conversation, great venue, another great time. Look forward to seeing you guys on Soundbites again soon. See you later.